Hi everyone, my name is Kika Uchino and I am the founder of Laugh and Learn Co. and the creator of Guided Speaking and Hands-on CLIL. I am really excited to be doing this today because it's actually my first webinar. And so for the first one, I decided to kind of give an overview of all of the elements of the Laugh and Learn system. And that includes the concepts and the strategies and the tools to make teaching and learning engaging and fun. So let's take a look at what Laugh and Learn is all about. Alrighty, basically, my goal from the beginning has been to create a space for language and CLIL teachers where they can really find everything that they need to be successful and happy in the classroom, from concepts all the way to materials. And that means 360-degree support for language and CLIL teachers, including the language acquisition approach, original activities and materials. Right now, I have 70 activities plus all the materials you need to carry them out on my website. I do workshops, I'm doing webinars like this one, and online support. I also do project programming and in-class training. So I work with schools and school districts, from teachers and students from preschool all the way through high school. I also give advice and tips and tricks on how to make grammar and verb tenses easier and even fun. So, to understand where Laugh and Learn, how it came about, and how it evolved into what it is today, I think it's important or it could be helpful to understand how I came about and how I evolved into what I am today. So, I am Japanese American. I was born in New York City, and Japanese and English were both a part of my childhood with a Japanese dad and an American mom. Then, at a young age, I was also introduced to Spanish and then French. I started in third grade in primary school. So, languages were really a big part of my childhood. Another really important part of my childhood were sports. So I played a ton of sports and then I chose tennis as my main sport. As I get older, as a teenager, I actually played professional tournaments, and then I became a coach. So you can see a lot of that influence of being a coach and being on the court in my classroom teaching. The last thing I think that is also another key element in my teaching style is that I moved to Italy and my three children were born here and they grew up in a bilingual house, which was Italian and English. And that really helped me kind of solidify how important speaking languages was. And also because they had friends that would come over and they would be introduced because I often spoke English to their friends, which the parents were really happy with. So, yeah, that really helped me understand how languages were learned and helped me create Laugh and Learn and the speaking approach, guided speaking. So those were my foundation. And what then the foundation of Laugh and Learn became learning by doing. And then if you're talking about languages, it is learning by speaking. And then for me, everything should be joyous and learning should be engaging and fun. So learning and laughing, and that is Laugh and Learn. All right, I wouldn't be a teacher if I did not give a good quiz. So here's your first one, and the who knows who said this and when. So this quote: I hear and I forget, I see and I remember, I do and I understand. Give you a few seconds. If you said Confucius in 300 BCE, you would be correct. This means that learning by doing has been around for more than a few years. So, about 2,300 years later, thanks to good old Confucius and many others along the way, like Maria Montessori and John Dewey, this is what Laugh and Learn looks like. This is what a Laugh and Learn classroom looks like today. Okay, here we see a happy kid who's the protagonist in this photo, and he's playing a game where he has to guess the animal on his head. So you can see that he's happy. But even more important than the kid is what's going on in the background. So you can see two groups of kids. There are three in each group, and they're engaged and they're speaking and they're using the speaking guides. You can see one of the kids holding a piece of paper, which is the speaking guide to play this game. And there are also no teachers. This photo really epitomizes my goals of Laugh and Learn and guided speaking so that kids are engaged, happy, learning. Everybody is listening and speaking simultaneously and learning. So I'm actually going to show you how to turn every language classroom, every language classroom into this. One of the reasons that I know this is possible and I know that it works is because all of the Laugh and Learn strategies and tools were created in the classroom for the classroom. I was really lucky enough to have the experience, and it was a very unique teaching experience of working together side by side with the teachers in the classroom. So everything I developed from the beginning has been to meet the real needs of both the students and the teachers. Alrighty, let's take a look of all the parts that make up Laugh and Learn now. These are all the symbols that represent the different elements of the Laugh and Learn system, and you'll see these all through everything. I'm just going to explain them really quickly right now because then going on through the webinar, I'm going to go into more detail on each one of them. So the first one here is the actual speaking approach that's called guided speaking. It's a language acquisition approach. If you look down here, these are all the activities that I've created to be able to follow guided speaking. Then print and play means all of the materials to be able to carry out the activities. Looking up here, this is what I was talking about before. So these are all of the projects in the schools and the school districts that I carry out. Hands-on CLIL is my version of content and language integrated learning. So it's hands-on, again, learning by doing. These are the workshops that I do in schools and again, school districts. And this is one of the tools that I use to teach verb tenses, which is really helpful. And I will explain it more as we go on in the webinar. Now let's look at each element individually. Let's start with guided speaking, which is the language approach. It is a simple, easy to follow, learning by speaking language acquisition approach that encourages and guides students to start speaking really by day one. That sounds like a lot, but let's unpack that and look at it and see what it's all about. So, guided speaking guides both inputs and outputs. When we talk about language skills, inputs are what comes in as language, so listening and reading, and outputs are what are produced as language, so speaking and writing. So, guided speaking gives teachers the know how, visual clues, and verbal clues and materials to guide their students to produce the correct outputs from the get go immediately. If we look at that in another way, we can superimpose guided speaking over the zone of proximal development, or Lev Vygotsky's ZPD theory. So in the middle is what students can say or do on their own without help, what they can do. And then on the outside, you have what they can't say or do yet. So I like to use yet because it gives the idea that it will happen soon. And guided speaking is really making a bridge from what they can't what they can do now on their own and what they will be able to do in the future. And guided speaking, because they start using the language through these speaking guides, or being visually or verbally prompted by their teacher, they can start using the language immediately, and it's incredibly efficient. And so what they can say grows very quickly, what they can say on their own. The approach is divided in 10 levels. So it starts at level 1 and it goes to level 2. And each level has a specific input and an output. Teachers using this approach can feel confident that their input level, so what they're giving to the students, are in line with the students' comprehension, and their output levels, what their expectations of what the students' output are in line with the students' speaking capacity. I'm going to do an entire webinar on guided speaking, so I'm not going to go too much into each of the levels, but I do just want to show you kind of an overview just to get an idea of what the levels look like. So anyway, level 1 is would be all the nonverbal responses. So maybe the students understand, but they're not at the level of responding verbally. It's basically like all of TPR lives in here. So it could be something like the teacher says, "Okay, everybody stand up and put your hands up and clap," and then the students do that. So it goes all the way from that nonverbal response all the way through the levels, where level 10 is really working towards becoming fluent in the target language. So it covers all of those levels. And like I said, I'm going to do a webinar on all of those levels. So once the teachers understand the level of their students, they can find the perfect activity for every level and age of student in all of the Laugh and Learn activities. And then, like I said in the beginning, like we talked about, print and play are all of the materials to be able to carry out those activities. These are actually in the free bundle. So these 4 activities, you can find them in the free bundle. And then on the right are all of the materials that are connected with these activities. So by doing print and play, you have everything that you need to carry them out. This is the silver bundle, and the silver bundle is the place where you find those 70 activities and then all of the materials. And it's broken down by level. So bundle A starts at level 1. So you have 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then bundle B has 5 through 10. So you can find really any activity, a perfect activity for any level and age student. I wanted to show you what a typical activity looks like, and they all follow this structure. So at the top, you can see the icons, which is a quick way to see if it's a good activity for the class that you have or the time that you have. So this one is a game. There's some frontal teaching here you can see. There's small groups work. It's based on questions and answers. There is some reading, and it takes about 50 minutes. So at a quick glance, you can see if this is a good activity for what you need. If you following down here, get ready is everything that the teacher needs to do to prepare the game or activity before the start of the class, before walking in the classroom. Get set is how to prepare the students and get ready for the activity in the classroom. Then you have go, which sometimes there's different versions of go. So it could be go whole class or go small groups or pairs. So, alrighty. This is just looking quickly at the icons that I use so that teachers can determine very, very fast if it's a good activity for their class, the time that they have, the level of student. If they want 4 skills, you can see 4 skills. There's some things that are kinds of arts and craftsy, so you'll see the arts and crafts icon. So it's important to know your icons so you can find activities quickly. Moving on is once you've decided what activity you want to do. So if we're doing that activity here, if we're doing this activity, this is the one that you saw in the beginning. This activity is where the kid had the card on his head and he had to guess what animal he was. So if you decide to play this activity, then all you have to do is print and play. So you have the materials. So you can choose between clothes, animals, and food, and you have those cards. So the close questions. This is the guided speaking part, the guided speaking guides, speaking guides. So for animals or for food here. Then you can also find all of the flashcards that you need. So there's all of the flashcards for clothes, animals, or food, depending on what you're playing, or you can play a mix of them. And I also decided to do the flashcards. So the ones that you saw before had the name and the object. Then each set has that. They also have they also have just the object and then just the name. You can use any card that's best for whatever activity you're carrying out. This is kind of important for me because there's the three golden rules, but this also shows that I have some posters that I think are great to put around your English and CLIL classrooms. I just want to take the time to explain my three golden rules, and they are: number one, speak a lot. Classrooms should be full of speaking. Number two, make a lot of mistakes. And speaking of mistakes, I'm going to put my cat on the floor and laugh a lot. So classroom should be full of laughing. So this is the free bundle, which you can find on my website and download it for free, obviously. And it does have 10 activities, so 1 through 10. And then there's also some other activities, and all of them have the materials with them. So if you want to check that out, you can. All right. I think now we have a pretty good idea of what Laugh and Learn looks like and what guided speaking is. So I wanted teachers to be able to turn any topic into a guided speaking activity where students are learning by speaking and doing and having fun and engaged. And let's see what that looks like. I'm going to use this activity as the example of how to turn any topic, vocab, grammar point into a guided speaking fun activity. So this is what's in the box race, and I use this for a project called Our Beautiful Planet, which was about reduce, reuse, the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle, and we added upcycle to this. And in this particular one, I was reinforcing the vocab that we used. So I set out 12 boxes, and in each box, I put different objects that were based on reduce, reuse, recycle, the vocab that we were learning. So there's rubber bands and pens and plastic bags and tin cans. And each one of the boxes had either one object or more than one object. So there's also hidden grammar in this, and you can see it: there is or there are. So this is also good. You can put grammar in, you can hide grammar in everywhere, and then they start using it right away, and it just becomes part of their automatic language instead of having to learn it. They're acquiring it instead of learning it. So this game, there are teams of two, and each team has a piece of paper, and they write on the top of the paper. It's also written here on the guided speaking poster, what's in box, and then a line. So each student in the pair had to say what's in box and then choose one of the boxes. They each had 6, so one student could choose anyone. They could say what's in box 12, and then the other student had to run, go see what was in the box, and count how many. Then they had to go back and report that to student A, let's say. If they didn't remember it, this is where the guided part comes in. And if you have to guide your students, that's absolutely fine. So they would look on the board. You can see the three students looking on the board because they couldn't remember the name or maybe the spelling. And then they would go back and report it. So it's a four skills game. There's reading, there's writing. They were writing on their own papers. They were listening and speaking, having fun and running. It really incorporates everything about Laugh and Learn and guided speaking, and it can be adapted to almost anything. So that that's kind of just a good idea of what an activity looks like and how to create it. So I do want to say one thing because it looks like all like fun and games and everybody's having fun, which is true, but there is really a serious side, which is why it's called Laugh and Learn. It's serious fun because I do really stand on the shoulders of giants, and I want to talk about these giants and the established approaches, strategies, and concepts, and the science behind Laugh and Learn and guided speaking. So let's take a little look at that. The main one that I've said over and over is learning by doing. There's the natural approach, which is the natural way that we learn language as little kids, which is what helped me with having a bilingual family. Inputs and outputs. There's TPR, which is total physical response. CLIL, which we also looked at, content and language integrated learning. There's a zone of proximal development, which we also looked at, task-based learning and project-based learning, which kids are learning by doing again, emotional intelligence at the top over here, and social and emotional learning, neuroscience, how the brain acquires information and how we take that information and put it in long-term memory. There's also flow and positive psychology, which is incredibly important, creating happy, positive classrooms. The push and pull theory. There's also student centered classrooms where students are really part of their own learning experience and helping create their own learning experience. The power of play, multidisciplinary, um, let's say there's also mixed level classrooms, which sometimes teachers are scared of, but with these games and activities, really you can put different levels together, either the same student level playing the game or one student that helps the other student. And because of the flexibility in the activities, multi level classrooms should not be scary anymore. There's also finally the multiple intelligence theory, so that some students are learning more through movement and putting things together, and other students are listening and other students are more visual. But really it puts Laugh and Learn puts all of those elements together in the different activities, and so you can propose different activities that have multiple intelligence really built into them. Right now, I do not have this on my website, but I'm going to, because I created all of these cards. So all of these different theories and concepts, I've made a small card that explains them, because when I started out, I really did not know most of these things. So I learned as I went. And so I thought this would be a really helpful tool for young teachers or teachers that are just starting out, or maybe there's always things that we don't know. And there's also how I apply these theories to guided speaking. In the process of building the Laugh and Learn system, I also developed my own tools and strategies as solutions to help me overcome the difficulties that either I faced in the classroom or I saw other teachers facing, or students too. So let's take a look at 10 of them. Let's start with speaking guides. So basically, they are the entire idea of guided speaking. So, guided speaking, speaking guides. And by a speaking guide, I mean that it could be a verbal input, it could be a physical nonverbal cue, or it could be the actual speaking guide, like the piece of paper that then the students follow. By creating the correct speaking guide. This is how students can start speaking correctly really from day one. They're guided to, they could say one word or they could say a two-word phrase or entire questions and answers. So they really do, through speaking guides, start speaking by day one. The next one is as many speakers as possible, AMSAP. And my goal for every class or every activity is really to have as many students speaking at the same time that I can, and ideally all of them. And that can happen either by doing an activity, let's say like brainstorming, where I ask them to say what they know on a topic and then I write everything down, or it could be something like putting the class in small groups or pairs. They have their speaking guides, they know what the objective is, and then I have all of the class in small groups listening, speaking, and interacting at the same time. All right. The next one, two equals talking. It sounds too simple to really be a thing, but it's actually kind of just amazingly simple in the fact that you just put two students together, they have an objective or they could have a speaking guide, and you actually have speaking in the target language. So just two students together, they have to do something and they speak in the target language. All right. So the next one is skill stacking. And skill stacking is a very helpful way to put lots of different skills in one activity so that you can do vocabulary and maybe the question form and a grammar point like present continuous, and you can also do conversations, and you can do, there's just so many different skills that you can put in activities. So I really try to put at least two or three or even four different skills in one activity. All right. The next one is ABEM. So ABEM is an incredibly helpful four skills tool. And ABEM means a book all about me. And it's that the students create their own books. And I'm going to do a webinar just on ABEM, just on how students can create their own books and the topics. But really, you can do everything in an ABEM book, and it could be adapted to almost any age and any level. Okay, the little tiny kids, they would at least have to be able to draw to make their own book, but I have nursery school students doing it all the way up to business English, where we're making our own dictionary, which is kind of like a book all about the company. Like I said, I am going to do a webinar on that, but every page is a different topic. So you can have my family, my favorite holiday, my favorite foods, a day in the life of me. There's just so many different things you can do. And for me, it's an unbelievable difference how connected they are if they make their own book. The next one is speakable moments. So I was inspired by teachable moments, and speakable moments are just taking those things that students say often in the classroom and then having them say them in the target language. A good example was in my primary school art and music CLIL project. Just after a couple weeks, the students were saying things like, "Can I have?" or "Look at this," or "Here," or just these basic things that the daily things they would normally say in their mother tongue language. You have them say in their target language, and very soon it becomes part of their daily language in the target language. All right, Little Moments is kind of similar, but it's more focused on the teachers than the students. So it means living in the language moments. I used a good example is for the daycare. I did a training project in a daycare, and so my students were from 6 months old at the time that I started to about 2.5 years. The daycare educators, they didn't feel maybe as confident as other teachers speaking in English. So we created these little moments during the day where they would say phrases. We actually wrote them on the boards and walls in the rooms, and then those became their little moments that they would say all of the phrases in English. So it would be something like roll up your sleeves, or get your slippers, or take off your shoes, or a big one was more bread, more water, those things at mealtime. So anyway, you can really create little moments in any part of the day, and those daily routines, things that students hear every day, are so important to hear in the target language. All right, moving on, we have questions and answers. So everyone knows Q&A. I use Q&A so that students are through speaking guides or through games, they're asking questions really from the beginning. So they're asking questions, they're practicing the question form, and then other students can answer. So it might be something like the game where you have to guess what object or what animal you are. And so they're saying, am I big, medium, or small? They're already practicing the question, and then the other student only has to say big, small, or medium. Okay, so moving on again, Mama Cheetah. All right, I'm not going to go too much into her, but I did see a documentary about animals, and this Mama Cheetah was really amazing. And the idea that I took away from her was that she really pushed her baby cheetahs, her students, just enough so that they had to practice a new skill, but then she helped them gain that new skill by, in the end, showing them how to do it over and over and over again. She was very patient and very loving and understood exactly how far to push her offspring. The 10th one is micro corrections. So there's a big debate, and probably we won't ever get to an answer where everyone's satisfied, but how you correct students when they make an error. I do let a lot of errors go, but when I correct, I don't have any negative connotation connected to the error. Then I quickly say it in the correct way. I fix the error, and then that student, they just have to repeat very quickly what I've said. So maybe the student said, she go to London last year, and I would just say she went to London, and then the student says she went to London, and it shouldn't really break the flow of speaking. Okay, the last one I want to look at is kind of cheating, because I know I said 10, but this is the 11th, but I could not leave repeat, repeat, repeat out. And the reason is that it's an idea that really I try to infuse in everything that I do, because we all know that the more you repeat something, the faster you learn. So the problem is that repeating, we tend to get boring and repetitive. So how do you repeat without being repetitive or feeling repetitive? And the way that you can do that is by proposing maybe the same vocab, same verb tenses, same grammar points in different activities that are really different one from the other. So maybe the first one is a running activity. The second one, students are making a page in their ABM books, their book all about me. The next one, they're working in pairs with questions and answers using their ABM books. And then finally, they're doing homework where they go home and ask somebody at home those same questions. So in the end, they've repeated it lots and lots of times, maybe even with a brainstorm at the beginning of the class, and it does not feel repetitive because it's proposed in such different ways. So that's really the whole idea behind repeat, repeat, repeat. Okay, so those are really the basic concepts. There's some other smaller ones, but those are the basic ones of the ones that I've created. And now I want to look at some of the elements, but that are more like overarching themes in Laugh and Learn. So one of those is the idea of teaching for the brain, the body, and the student. So this is neuroscience in the classroom. And recently, there's been much more focus on the fact that we treat students by their like in two distinct parts. So we're either teaching for the brain, which they're learning math equations or memorizing history facts, or we're teaching to the body where they're doing physical education or they're taking like a swimming course or something like that. So now with the technological advancements in neuroscience and the ability to do brain scans, scientists are really seeing that that the brain and the body are actually connected. I know that's shocking, but anyway, so because of this, we are now looking at something called brain based teaching. And what is that, and how do we apply brain based teaching in our classrooms? So, I'm actually going to do a webinar dedicated to brain based language teaching, what that looks like, how to carry it out successfully in the classrooms. But I do want to say that neuroscience really is showing us the importance of our bodies and our emotions and our brains all connected as a whole entire student, and how looking at the student as a whole student is actually much more efficient in terms of acquiring anything but acquiring languages. So, all right, the next thing I want to look at is social and emotional learning cells, how emotional intelligence changes the way we create the environment in classrooms, and how changing that environment into positive, encouraging, nurturing classrooms changes and really transforms learning, not just language learning, but really learning anything. So I do teach emotional intelligence in the language classroom, but I also have carried out a lot of CLIL emotional intelligence projects, and this is one of them. This is actually, I think, one of incredible classes that I've ever had. So it was in a third grade middle school class, which would be equivalent to an eighth grade class. And this was a brainstorm, and I just asked the question, what makes us different, or how are we different? And that became okay, this brainstorm where they said different things, but it really catapulted us into this incredibly intense, but also, I want to say loving, because that's kind of cheesy, but there's my dog, discussion on what makes us different, what like tolerating somebody means, what accepting somebody means. So it was, yeah, just one of those like magical moments, and it was all because of emotional and social and emotional learning. Anyway, moving on here, another one of the main elements, or the important elements in the Laugh and Learn system, is hands-on CLIL. It's my version of CLIL, which is content and language integrated learning. So, like I said before, it's teaching a subject that's not a language in a language that's not the mother tongue language of the students. So I've done CLIL projects in all of these different subjects. So CLIL math, CLIL art, CLIL IT, CLIL science and CLIL environmental science, CLIL music, CLIL history, geography, physical education. You can teach CLIL cooking, you can teach CLIL tennis. Really, you can just teach anything, and the benefits are unbelievable. So learning the content, so another subject's information, whatever it is, in a second language actually kind of creates some kind of magic. And I do it through hands-on. So students are experimenting, and we're going to take a look at these pictures. They're discovering, experimenting, creating, building, understanding. And so each one of these was a different CLIL project. This was a CLIL science project. This student is discovering whether this is a solid or a liquid, and it actually is the non-Newtonian liquid, so it it can be both. This one, which is parsley, okay, they had to use their nose. It was the five senses. This one was building a tree. This one was a really wonderful project where they had to build their own musical instruments. This one was CLIL art, and we traveled around the world and they did art from different parts of the world. And this was an environmental science, three R's, reduce, reuse, recycle project where we were discovering how long things took to biodegrade. So really, CLIL is just kind of a world that you can do anything with. And all right, so as you can see, I have magically changed because when I got to the editing process, I realized that the last piece I couldn't use. So here I am, and we're almost done here. So let's jump back in with this CLIL physical education PE slide. And the reason I put this in is because it really kind of embodies everything that I think is important. And so we're talking about CLIL physical education. So it's movement, it's learning by doing. In this, where the skill stacking is that we're talking about parts of the body. We also were looking at numbers through counting. And then I added as the grammar point, I can and I can't yet. Where I asked them, can you? And they would answer, yes, I can, no, I can't. So anyway, as you can see, all the kids are having fun. We're moving, we're trying things. And in this particular picture, I had asked them to who could stand on one foot. And so we're all trying to do that. And then we were counting to see who could stand the longest. All right, moving on here. The verb timeline. The verb timeline that I mentioned before briefly is really just a super efficient tool to learn verb tenses. Instead of learning one verb tense at a time and then the negative, affirmative, and interrogative forms, and then kind of putting it away and then learning another one, it's a holistic way. So they're learning all of them together. Obviously, this isn't for really small kids, but I will just show you quickly here. This is the 9 verb timeline. Here in Italy, this goes up like through middle school. These would be all of the ones that they would learn before high school. Anyway, I have color coded it, and a lot of my students that had problems with dyslexia, this really helped them because it's very visual, and you can see how all of the verbs fit together. So there's also the color coded part is the red is the structure. Then there's the names, okay, in black. The green are signal words, and then the arrows kind of show how things are connected and when you use them. And yeah, I've actually filmed these videos, and now I have to edit them and I will put them up. So one at a time, I'll explain how to teach each verb tense and then put it all together in the verb timeline. One of the things I really love to do is working together with teachers to create projects. My ideal projects are longitudinal projects. So it would be in Italy, a school district goes from nursery school, which starts at 3 here, and it goes through middle school. So it's really like 3 to 13. And I love those because it gives a cohesive language learning experience for the students. And then also the teachers know what the students have learned in each stage of the process. I also love multidisciplinary projects so that they're involving other teachers. There's the science teachers, maybe there's the art, music teachers, geography, math, and students really learn the interconnectedness of things, of everything. We are almost at the end here, and thank you for following me along in this process. And the last thing I wanted to talk about is the teacher training workshops that I do. They are really learning by doing as well. So teachers are trying out the activities and the games, and there's lots of learning and lots of laughing in all the workshops. Anyone who's interested, definitely get in touch with me, and we can see if I can do in-person workshops in your school or school districts or multi-school districts, or we could maybe find a solution online, which also can work in this new modern world. The very last thing that I want to say is that if you do want to try out some of the free materials that I have, there's free activities and materials. You can go to my website, which is laughandlearnco.com, and there's individual ones that are free, or you can download the free bundle, which has all the free activities plus all the materials you need to carry them out. So if you want to try those, you're more than welcome to go and download things. I made it to the end, my first one, and thank you so much for being part of this very first webinar. And since my motto is happy students and even happier teachers, I really hope this overview of the Laugh and Learn tools and concepts and strategies will help you bring lots more happiness and laughter to your language classrooms and CLIL classrooms. And I will be uploading more videos, so I hope to see you there. And until then, don't forget to keep laughing and learning. Thank you so much. Bye.